哪天开始停到哪天呢？
现在不知道，我们只能等上面通知。
今天停是吗？
你知道现在在北京有多少人开专车吗？这个数字疫情之前呢是14万，现在呢这个数字已经攀升到了37万。怎么增加了这么多呢？专车师傅说呢，很多人疫情期间失业了，没活干，可不就来开专车了。前2天还有一则新闻呢，我看到说，复工之后的2个月里，我国的外卖骑手新增了58万人。在这些新增的骑手里边，30%的来自于餐饮旅游这些服务行业，4%的来自于制造业的工人，2%来自于自由职业，包括那些破产的个体户老板们，还有1%呢来自于应届毕业生。那剩下的1%呢，就来自于其他行业。有一个转行的外卖小哥说呢，他之前是个程序员，之前也瞧不起送外卖这样的职业，但是没有办法，他失业了。
Hello， 大家好，我是周周。今天呢，我们这里又下雪了。我所在的位置是青海省西宁市的黄东区。今天是2020年的5月26号，没想到还会下雪。今年天气也真的太奇怪了。等一下的话，我要出门了，给大家看一下沿途的风景。
President, can you tell us what you plan to do regarding sanctions against China for its pending actions against Hong Kong? And do you also intend to put restrictions on F&J visas for students and researchers coming into the United States from China?
Your question's early. We're doing it now. We're doing something now. I think you'll find it very interesting, but I won't be talking about it today. I'll be talking about it over the next couple of days, John. Okay? But it's a very important question.
Joining me now is Jason Wu, Taiwan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Wu, thank you so much, Minister Wu, for being here this evening. It's good to have you with us. What is your reaction, when you hear the president say that there may be some tougher stances towards China? coming, even at the end of this week, in terms of sanctions or possibly in terms of audits being done of Chinese companies here in the United States?
Well, what the Chinese government is about to do to Hong Kong, legislating its national security law, is something that the whole international community has been watching very closely. And I have full respect of what the United States is ready to do against China in order to save and protect Hong Kong's freedom and democracy. And I think Taiwan is also trying to do the same. We have been watching very carefully, and we are also telling China that don't do it. And we are telling China that what they promised 30 years ago, freedom and democracy in Hong Kong should be honored. And we want to support Hong Kong the way we can so that Hong Kong can continue to stay free and prosperous.
Do you think China is taking advantage of this moment when everybody is so focused on COVID-19 in their own countries?
Yes, that's what appears to be. When everybody is getting very busy in dealing with pandemic, and the Chinese government seems to be trying to expand and trying to take actions in many places around the world. Look at South China Sea. China seems to be gearing up its military actions over there. China is also putting pressure on Taiwan. China is also taking up some actions in the East China Sea. It's also trying to impose some restrictions on other countries, especially in the Western Hemisphere, not to deal with Taiwan. And look at what they are trying to do to Hong Kong right now. And I think that is quite obvious that the Chinese government is trying to take advantage of the situation that everybody is busy. But I think we need to stay vigilant, and we are staying vigilant. If Hong Kong falls, or if the Chinese government imposed the national security legislation on Hong Kong, we don't know what is going to happen next. It might be Taiwan, and we are staying very cautious on this issue. We try to protect ourselves.
Do you think that it's possible that China makes a military move against Hong Kong or Taiwan during this period?
What the Chinese government is trying to do is to impose its own rule on Hong Kong. Even though the Chinese government promised Hong Kong a one country, two systems, and the system in Hong Kong will not change in 50 years, but what they are trying to do is fully taking over Hong Kong's administration. And we are also concerned that China might take some military action against Taiwan. That's what I said all along. When the Chinese government is facing crisis domestically, the best way for it is to find a scapegoat outside. And Taiwan can be a very easy scapegoat for China. And we are watching very carefully. And of course, we don't want China to think that Taiwan is so vulnerable that they can take over Taiwan very shortly by military means. So we're trying to get the support from the United States and from around the world diplomatically. And at the same time, we are trying to beef up our own defense capabilities so that China will be deterred.
Taiwan Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, thank you. Good to have you back on the program, sir. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Martha.
Today, SpaceX is launching its first manned shuttle to the International Space Station later today, the Crew Dragon. It is the first time since 2011 that astronauts will lift off from American soil on an American-made rocket and spacecraft.
You know, the president has stood down the Space Force, which is a whole new branch of the military, because space will be the new warfighting domain. But the commercial side is very, very important. It's bringing the cost of everything down, and that's what's going to facilitate space tourism, space manufacturing, space habitation, space mining, a whole bunch of new activities, and that will take the industry from its current $400 billion total to over $1 trillion. So this is a very, very big deal. Our hearts go out to the individual civilians in Hong Kong. We're with them, but the president will have to decide exactly what is the appropriate response to it.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have to distinguish between the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people. Does it make sense to zero in and target specific the CCP with sanctions on Chinese officials?
Well, there's a whole menu of potential things that he could do, and I'm sure they're working right now on exactly how to refine the thinking and come up with something that's an appropriate response.
Twitter putting a warning label on one of President Trump's tweets for the first time ever yesterday after the president tweeted about potential risks of mail-in voting, telling users to, quote, get the facts. The president fighting back, accusing Twitter of election interference and stifling free speech.
There's another kind of interference, and that could be fooling around with voting machines. I mean, in terms of voting by mail, vote proxies, what's your take?
Voting by mail is very dangerous because people can grab them. People can take that proxy, sign a name. They can do all sorts of things, especially harvesting. They go out and they say, just, let's put them all together. And that's happened.
Hello, my dear friends. I wish this beautiful April day could cheer you up a little bit.
This is Un-ah. Nothing like your usual North Korean propaganda host. She speaks fluent English and presents herself as a modern North Korean woman living in the capital, Pyongyang. And she disputes reporting from the West about her country. So far, the videos are racking up just several thousand views on YouTube, but some appear to have circulated more widely on Weibo, China's popular social network. The accounts that are uploading her content are known for sharing other propaganda material glorifying the DPRK. Experts have linked these accounts to Sogwang, a North Korean state-run media outlet, and believe they are monitored by the regime.
As a prominent scientist, I know you want to talk about the JAMA study, and you've got some really interesting things and appalling things to tell us about. But as a scientist, I'd love, as you talk about the JAMA study, how has this become so politicized, the science here?
Well, that's a good question. I think there is a combination of several facts. The first one is obviously you can see in the last paper that came out in the Lancet, the authors of the paper have interests, vested interest on the pharmaceutical companies. As a matter of fact, Francois made an interview with Mera, Dr. Mera, which actually is the first author from the last Lancet publication. At the end of the day, in the end of the publication, he comes up with a summary of all, saying that basically patients that are treated 7 days after symptoms, these drugs are not going to work. But then the press gets his publication and turns it into some kind of a flag to show that hydroxychloroquine as erythromycin do not work. So it's almost beyond understanding.
Well, yeah, and you and I talked about it last night, too. We had Lancet wrote 2 editorials last week asking for the removal of both Bolsonaro and of President Trump. So It's nice to see those guys on the same page where Lance is concerned. Could you tell us in detail about the JAMA study? We've talked about it on the show. Obviously, they chose people who are very sick, but what was very frightening that you told me about was that basically they murdered these people with lethal dosages of hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, it's very interesting that in 1988, there's a very important publication by Ryu et al. That came out in New England Journal of Medicine. And it was well established based on the revision of several cases of intoxication due to chloroquine, that chloroquine base cannot exceed 5 grams in people. So what they did in Manaus was give 1.2 grams of chloroquine, the base form of it, which is way more active, if you will, and they actually choose to give this high dose to the most compromised elder. So it's kind of a Joseph Mengele being reissued here in Manaus. So what happened is that our federal attorney's office got into that. So they are now under investigation by the federal government. And there's a huge list of people there. And most of these people are openly from some kind of ideological leftist tendency. They all voted against the President Bolsonaro, if you will. And also this work was funded by what we call now the Confederate governors and senators, meaning the states that are in open opposition to the federal government. So it's very sad to see all this combination of misconduct, political madness, and people being killed. So I'm very glad that the justice system here in Brazil went over that.
Well, Dr. Zanata, let me ask you a question. Do you agree that President Bolsonaro's initial handling of this, where he was kind of laughing it off and saying, hey, it's a cold and I'm going to go out in a crowd and, you know, we're going to wander around and work together, this is a joke? It basically said it's a joke. Do you think that was appropriate?
No, listen, I think it's been from the very beginning, the president here in Brazil was in line with what your president, Donald Trump, was saying. So if we had initially made available to people these antimalaric drugs in the context of therapeutics and prevention, it would be very possible that we would have the whole situation under control by now. So he was actually considering that eventually this whole thing would come up to some good terms and people would come up with a consensus. And the thing would roll out very,
But Dr. Zanata, I totally disagree with you. That's President Trump and President Bolsonaro wasn't talking about therapeutics. President Bolsonaro, I'm just asking you a straightforward question. When he first started, he was like, this thing's a joke. This thing's nothing to pay attention to. Do you agree that that was the appropriate way to handle it? And would Brazil be in this current situation if you had handled it differently? President Trump was quite different. He stopped travel from China. He quarantined citizens, etc. They were totally, maybe on hydroxy they were kind of the same, but they never looked at hydroxy. Trump never looked at hydroxy as some miracle drug that was going to come in and solve everything.
Twitter 上有很多战友都在说，庞培奥国务卿向国会通知取消这个香港自贸区地位，这个竟没有一个人提到我们爆料革命。多少爆料革命的战友的贡献呢？你知道这个事情的背后，第一个提起爆料革命，我们第一个向全世界、向美国提出来。2017年我们就说，美国要想真正的要想了解共产党，你们要真正负起责任的话，就不要再在香港自贸区地位有任何语，马上给它停了包括停止华尔街投资和这个美国的退休养老保险基金2017年我们就提。刚才我翻了一下子这个，我一直都视频会，到现在还没完呢。我说马上中间有人提出上厕所，说我们休了几分钟，大概2点15还要开。但是我竟然看到推特没有任何提爆料革命，没有郭文贵，千万别提郭文贵。但是不提爆料革命，大家心都是黑了的竟然那么多人没有一个人提爆料革命，天理何在啊？谁替香港呼吁啊？我可以告诉大家没有爆料革命，美国人想都不会想这个取消自贸区地位。到前天下午前天上午在美国的较量当中，还有多个人在问我 取消香港自贸区地位会什么后果？到底那么认真吗？那么严重吗？我告诉他们，这是最重要的啊，最重要的啊！取消自贸区地位，香港港币脱钩，然后惩罚香港的所有在美国西世界的官员啊，然后并且开始要在美国审判啊，国际法审判，这是我们在做的。前天上午吵得一塌糊涂啊，我可以告诉说，没有爆料革命，这些绝对不会发生，最起码不是现在发生。亲爱的兄弟姐妹们，爆料革命是我们每个人多少战友冒着生命危险、全家人的代价，有的人闹得要离婚，有的人要自杀啊，威胁对方家人啊，不让支持爆料革命。共产党分分钟在残害着我们的战友，杀害我们的战友，换来的成绩，你们不要忘了爆料革命啊！这么容易忘记，永远就不会懂得感恩，不懂得感恩，你永远不会有美好的未来。